Boys, some of you do not know this, but some of you do. That on this channel, Bobby Original G Hardar Envert Kotick is an absolute legend. We love him. Bobby is our spirit animal. Bobby is what we strive to be as. Bobby is officially known as one of two official ways to achieve transcendence in finance and becoming a god. Bobby is unstoppable. He is completely inhuman at this point. He is ruthless, tactical, calculated, and he absolutely could not care less about you. He's watching this video right now and saying, "Oh, thank you, Quasar, for these kind words," and then he's and spitting on my grave. That's right. Never apologize. Never admit wrongdoing. That is Bobby G. Kotick. And once again, our Lord and Savior has decided to humiliate Blizzard for the last time. First, he humiliated the players by selling $100 mounts. Now he is just in general completely standing up to multiple countries and doing even more. It's amazing. What Bobby is doing, not a lot of people would be able of doing it, and he's completely wiping the floor with the reputation of Activision.
Everybody's favorite gaming CEO, Bobby Kotick, is back, and guess what? He's being taken to court once again. And what he's done is, in response to...
They couldn't keep him down the first time, now they're gonna try one more time, and it's the dumbest thing ever, because I have read the article.
A lawsuit, he's actually dropping loads of information in terms of how console sales are plummeting and actually how bad Call of Duty is doing relative to Battlefield 6. Now, actually, we've got to break this down because Bobby Kotick is a piece of work like you would not believe. So I want to show you this. This is from the Grit podcast. This was from 11 months ago, but this gets you into the mind of Bobby Kotick. This is why he wanted to sell Activision Blizzard, because, well, frankly, the workers are not mindless drones that he can just order around. Check this out. It is extremely...
Bobby knew that Blizzard is going out the window, that it's going to turn into the shambles that it currently is. Literally, almost $1 trillion company turned into nothing by woke activists, losers, and people who demand everything be so easy that they don't even have to do it.
Eye-opening. Listen to this.
We never had Chinese competitors. Like, this was a whole new thing. And it's like, where did these guys come from? And like, look at the work ethic and the capability. And, you know, Tencent, it's the biggest video game company in the world by a mile.
By a lot.
He's actually right on that one, by the way.
And they're in a market that we can't enter. You know, it's like, you got to get a license to participate. You have to have a joint venture partner, or you have to license it to a local partner. They're going to copy the game and do something directly competitive.
You basically can't get to those billion customers.
By the way, they go to the office every day, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. They don't need a vegan.
Look at Bobby. Look at Bobby just sitting there and unironically telling these losers to their face, human rights violations. Not a pretty cool thing. God, this is why I love him. There is zero apologizing. There is zero humanity, okay? On the altar of Bobby Kotick must always have a sacrificial suartes once a month. I mean, the guy's a legend. Like, there is not even a single shred of doubt in his mind that he has said anything even remotely close to wrong, or he shouldn't say it. If you plebs have a problem with this, that's on you for not being rich.
What the fuck? Like, do I even need to go any further here? You can see what this guy is saying, right? He's saying you can't compete with China because they've got more work ethic, which I think in his head is just, you're in the office more, you're doing 10 hours a day. China works on 996. I'm not saying every company in China works on that, but it's basically 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. It seems like Bobby's seen this and thought, well, why can't my Californian devs do this? That's what I want them to do. And by the way...
I mean, honestly, Bobby should start with making the Californian devs, you know, do anything properly and then kind of upscale. But, you know, that's a different subject, to be honest.
I'm also connecting in my head here, this is as if I was Bobby Kotick, I'm saying this from the point of view of, They want vegan meals as well. These guys talk too much crap. Like, get to work, eat the food we're giving you, 10 hours a day, do the job. We can't compete with these guys from China. They're like the biggest game companies in the world, Tencent, which it is by revenue. Yada, 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 yada. It's absolutely insane, this is. This is an insane way of viewing.
Tencent is also not the biggest game company by revenue. It's by assets.
Your workforce, because, of course, like, there's been absolutely incredible games that have come out that have made a ton of money, that have been very competitive, that are not made by some sort of crazy, sweatshop that he seems to think he cannot possibly compete with. There is one thing with Bobby, though. It's actually kind of funny, because imagine if AI was around when Bobby was in charge. Everything at Activision Blizzard would be AI-led, everything, because he'd see it as the sort of great equalizer. He doesn't have the...
I mean, let's be honest. Overwatch, World of Warcraft, and I don't know, some other garbage that Blizzard probably has. No one knows what else they have at this point. Would you not want that job to be taken over by, honestly, AI at this point? Because the people working at Blizzard are garbage. Have you seen the Diablo 4 team? Have you seen those absolute wastes of oxygen, wastes of space? I bet you haven't if you don't think that AI would do a better job than Activision Blizzard in general. It's not even a question. Bobby would have, if AI was a thing, Bobby would have fired all of these freaks and replaced them with AI. And you know what? The gamers would have been actually more happy for it. When was the last time Overwatch did something good? When was the last time Diablo devs did something promising? When did World of Warcraft release something that wasn't garbage and people did not care? World of Warcraft is literally dying the death of apathy. No one cares what's happening with it. Is there a new expansion? Is it a new I don't know what's happening. I don't care what's happening.
The sort of work power, the staff power, I guess you could say, as these Chinese competitors. But now he can just deploy loads of AI agents. I can bet you that's what he would have done. So that's a little bit of an insight there into this guy's mind. That's how he operated, and yeah, it's absolutely not great at all. Okay, so we're going to move on to what has actually been said here, because Bobby is being taken to court. Again, he's always been taken to court. But in this, he's actually explaining...
They're trying so hard to stop the big B.
Or releasing like tidbits of information within his sort of defense from his legal team that is actually shining a light onto what's going on sort of in the gaming industry. It's quite interesting. So again, remember, he's a dickhead and all of that stuff, but we're going to jump over to this and check this out. So this is from IGN, although the original article is...
Yes, I have read this article.
From a different website. It's from GameFile, although I'm not a subscriber. So because I'm cheap, we're just going to take it from IGN. No, I apologize. There's links to all this in the video description below anyway, so you guys can check it out. Anyway, Bobby Kotick claims Activision Call of Duty and consoles are doing so poorly, it proves he was right to sell Activision Blizzard to Microsoft for $69 billion. Former Activision boss, Bobby Kotick, has made a number of claims about the state of his former company, Call of Duty, and the console market as part of a response to a lawsuit. Kotick, who left Activision Blizzard at the end of 2023, having sold the company to Xbox maker Microsoft for $69 billion. Now, I've got to be under no illusions here. Bobby, you can say he's an arsehole. He's a scumbag. And I'm going to show you evidence which, if you don't know who he is, we're going to get to that. But, like, on paper...
Bobby should sue him for saying something that's heinous as that.
In this capitalist dreamland that we all seem to inhabit, he has actually, he's won. He's done one of the biggest deals in the world for a merger. And Bobby's done this. He took Activision from a company that was only worth a few million to worth billions and sold it for nearly $70 billion. So he's a great guy, right?
True.
Anyway, let's move on. He's battling investors who claim he rigged the sale to keep his job and $400 million in change of control benefits. And
you know what? He did. And what are you going to do about it, Sweden? What the hell are you going to do about it?
To insulate himself from claims he knew about widespread sexual harassment at Activision. Kotick has denied...
He did? And he denies everything. Bobby doesn't care about your petty peasant things.
Any wrongdoing. Of course, he always denies wrongdoing. The investors are led by Swedish pension fund AP7. They have accused Kotick of rushing into the Microsoft merger and contend the $95 per share takeover price was too low from the outset. AP7 names Kotick Activision Blizzard and its owner, Microsoft, as defendants, right? So that's the reason for the lawsuit. As reported by GameFile, Kotick has now issued his response to the allegations. In it, he accuses Swedish game company Embracer, which owns the rights to the likes of Tomb Raider, Dead Island, and Lord of the Rings, of being involved with the lawsuit and benefiting from it, something the company has denied. Parts of Kotick's defense use the declining financial performance of Activision Blizzard, Call of Duty, and the console market in recent years to back up his claim that selling Microsoft at $95 a share was the right thing to do at the time. And one quote in particular is being picked up by the Call of Duty community as of being of interest. And then this is the quote from the article. Of course, we were just reading IGN's version of the GameFile article there, but this is from GameFile. Today, given that console sales are at an all-time low and Call of Duty sales are off over 60% from the...
By the way, this is also what I said, that it looks like Call of Duty is underselling at least by 50% or even lower. And this is Bobby. He knows, okay? Bobby knows how many players correlate with what kind of number. Because he has seen all of this, okay? He may not know what Call of Duty even is, but he knows that if the player number is X, then the sales are Y, because there's always a correlation. So Bobby saying it's undersold 60%, beautiful, chef's kiss.
Prior year, the plaintiff should be expressing extreme gratitude for the foresight.
Look at Bobby. He's getting sued for filling up his own pockets, and Bobby's turning it around at them and saying, you should actually be on your knees and begging me in thankfulness. Because of what I did, because I did the exactly perfect right call and no one else would have done it. You see, this is why I love Bobby. He is an absolute beast.
Of Activision leadership demonstrated in consummating this transaction. So,
also, how many times has Bobby been sued since he left Blizzard? 2, 3? Is this the 4th? Or how many times has it already been that someone is like, no, we don't like the big Enver G. Yes, well, let's sue him. And then he's like, you lost.
Let's just break this down, right? So basically what they're saying is he sold the company too cheap, right? Bobby wanted to get out because he knew things were going to get bad.
Damn
and
right.
If things were going to get bad, right? Just go with me here. Sales are going to be lower.
Yes.
Because Bobby knows things are going to be bad, right?
Yes.
Right? So we're going to sell now at $95 a share and not whatever the company should have been sold at, which, like, this pension fund thinks it should have been worth more. But Bobby knows, right? Because he sees what games...
Swedish pension fund, by the way. They invested and they think they should have gotten more, which is so fucking stupid.
Games are being developed. Actually, the games coming out in the future, maybe they're not going to be as good. He can look at his internal statistics and say, well, Call of Duty might be sort of dropping a bit. There might be a little catalyst which maybe knocks it off its perch for a few years and all of this stuff, and the revenue's going to decline. So I've got to sell this now. So what I'm going to do, I'm making this figure up here, but let's say it should be sold for $110. I'm going to actually sell it for like $95 because that looks really attractive. And a big buyer like Microsoft will go, oh, yeah, that's actually a deal. We'll buy that. They don't know, though, the next Call of Duty will be shit. And then the next one after that will also be garbage. So the sales are going to drop. And guess what? I also know that Battlefield 6 has been in development for a few years. And I know it's actually pretty good. It's probably going to affect my sales for Call of Duty. That's basically what they're arguing here. But Bobby's like, no. I did a good thing because guess what? The industry did go down. Activision's profits did go down. But he would know that because he would have seen what was being developed. You see what I'm saying? It's like, this is how these people operate. It's like another world. Anyway, they go on to say, as GameFile points out, Kotick failed to provide evidence of his 60% sales decline claim. And neither Microsoft nor Activision have announced a sales figure for Black Ops 7 yet. But we do know...
Well, the fact that they haven't announced is, by the way, the proof of Bobby being, as always, correct. Because when this is true in every industry, outside gaming, literally everywhere. Sales good, you shout them through the rooftop. Sales bad, crickets. Nothing. You don't say anything. You pretend it didn't happen.
Black Ops 7 has struggled in sales terms compared to Black Ops 6. A fact that's reflected in everything from European sales figures to Activision's own admissions. Circana has reported that November's full game dollar sales of Call of Duty Black Ops 7 finished below...
Wait, I don't trust Circana statistics. Just gonna point it out. Everything I have seen is guesstimation from their side. They don't have inside information. people are looking at Circana and they're like, oh, they have these companies are actually giving them their statistics for some. No, they're not. That's a lie. Circana is getting zero insider information. They're just guesstimating. They're doing what I'm doing, but worse.
Those of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 last November, with Call of Duty Black Ops 6 launching in October 2024 tracking period. So the decline, there is a decline there. We know there's a decline. Bobby's come out and said there's a 60% decline, but we're not too sure where he's got those figures from. But I'm sure he's got some sort of nefarious analytical thing you can use. Of course, none of this takes into account Game Pass effect. Call of Duty...
What Game Pass effect? The fact that Game Pass performed so poorly that Microsoft needed to up its price once again because otherwise Game Pass was not making enough revenue? That Game Pass? Surprise, surprise. No one is gonna... No one's... But everyone who is old... I talked about this before. Buying Call of Duty to get people in Game Pass has been the stupidest, most ludicrously nonsensical business move that I have seen in my life. At least one of them, okay? And the reason for that is because the overlap between Game Pass and Call of Duty players is very high. So effectively, the people who have Game Pass are already playing Call of Duty. And now, instead of buying Game Pass and Call of Duty separately, these idiots have made it that you can only buy Game Pass, which these people are already buying, and not buy the Call of Duty thing. Which means you're just missing out on money from the sale of Call of Duty while gaining nothing from Game Pass because those people already have Game Pass. It is the most ridiculous, easy way I have seen to lose money. And for no reason.
Launches day one on Microsoft's subscription service, which will no doubt have an impact on sales, at least on Xbox consoles. But a 60% sales decline is an enormous drop-off, even with Game Pass considered. IGN has asked Activision for comment. Now, I do want to say something here. In the podcast that I linked, it's in the video description below, he actually talks about this. He says he doesn't want things to become subscription services, which is kind of interesting because, Activision has got World of Warcraft, which is one of the big gaming subscription services. But he doesn't want, he sees these big companies as taking their, licenses, their IPs, even their games, and turning them into subscription services, and he thinks that's reducing the value. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously Call of Duty is on Game Pass, so maybe there's some sort of correlation there that it is actually reducing the value. But I think even at this 60%, if you want to take that figure at face value, that is still a massive drop. And like we know, Call of Duty, if you even look at the play, I mean, when you look at things like SteamDB, you can't completely compare that for Call of Duty because obviously it's big on consoles, but you can see that its numbers were nowhere near what Battlefield 6 had achieved.
We can compare them because we have Xbox officially shows the most popular games on Xbox Live. We know that this estimate is correct because of the numbers on Xbox. Well, specifically, they don't give numbers, but Xbox Live is a very neat tool because over the years, there have been a lot of developers who have given their numbers for position and ranking on Xbox Live and actual concurrent player numbers. Position 10 on Xbox Live, being position 10 to 15, I should say, that's more accurate, is lowest roughly 3K players and highest maybe 10 on a super amazing situation day or some kind of miracle. Okay? That does not even typically amount to Steam's top 50. Yes. And when you know that statistic and you look at Call of Duty coming out and it's still trailing Fortnite and it effectively not moving at all in the position that it was in previously, that means no one's playing it on consoles. Okay? Also, I hate this argument that consoles matter because, dude, if consoles mattered, then Sound of Midnight would have not been a failure. Then Star Wars Outlaws would not be Steam matters. That's all that matters. Steam is the quintessential most important metric for literally any game anywhere. If it wasn't true, then we would not have these situations where a game performs poorly on Steam and then it gets shut down, even though someone's yelling, "Oh, it's actually doing really well on consoles." No, that would not happen.
Last year, obviously, Battlefield 6 is declining as well now, but still, there are bits of sort of corroborating data we can look at. Anyway, we go on to say there is data to back up Kotick's claim about consoles. November 2025 was shockingly terrible month for video game sales in the US. Indeed, it was the worst November in video game hardware unit sales and the worst in physical software dollar sales the US has seen since 1995. More specifically, hardware spending was down a whopping 27% year over year to $695 million, the lowest hardware spending total for November since 2005's $444 million. Even worse, unit sales reached 1.6 million, which is the lowest in November total since 1995. Of 1.4 million. Now, I do want to say about this, you've got to think things like tariffs are obviously having an effect on this. It's pushing the cost of everything up. Obviously, cost of living is going up. There's all the, a lot of stuff comes into effect here, which again, somebody like Bobby Kotick would be very.
It doesn't. We have talked about this a lot. It doesn't.
Aware that was maybe not so much the tariffs, but the other stuff. He would probably be quite aware.
Also, when they're talking about software sales, unit sales software, they're talking about games sold, and games, and these games are not subject to tariffs because you're buying them online. Yet, I mean, I'm sure these companies are gonna find a way to greed that up too, but currently no.
Things were coming to like a head, and he needed to sell the company before its value became less, right? Because imagine how much Activision Blizzard would be worth today if he tried to sell it. It wouldn't be $95 a share because all of their games are not performing as good as they should have done or have done historically in the past, so they'd be worth less. And that's representative declines across the board. Xbox Series hardware sales were down 70% year over year, but that's actually a shocking statistic, that is. PS5 sales were down over 40%, and combined unit sales of Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 were down over 10% from Switch sales last year, despite this being a launch year for the Nintendo Switch 2. Kotick repeated his 60% claim elsewhere in his response, where he took a shot at the US Federal Trade Commission's attempt to block Microsoft Activision's.
Look at Bobby just. Look at Bobby just shooting down everyone. He's not holding back. He's going on all of them. Okay, he's a gangster through and through.
Buyout. Part of the FTC's argument was that Microsoft owning Call of Duty would give it an unfair advantage in the gaming market, but Kotick insists that the struggles of Call of Duty the struggles of Call of Duty in the face of stiff competition from the likes of Battlefield show that not to be the case. Okay, remember what I said. Bobby would have known what was being developed and the trends things were going so he would have known, right? It's just he would have had a very good idea that subsequent entries into the Call of Duty franchise would not perform as well, right? There is no world where he wouldn't have known that. The company's actual performance since January 2022 is telling, uniformly missing the long-range plan's target metrics, which should come as no surprise given that the company historically missed nearly all of the ambitious targets set forth in its long-range plans, a fact known well to the board when the deal was negotiated. Kotick's response reads, all told, had the deal not gone through, this would have likely resulted in a substantially lower stock price, as is easily established by Activision's financial performance post-closing, which has been far below the ambitious targets contained in the plans. Call of Duty is on track to perform over 60% below last year because of intense competition from titles like Battlefield, destroying the FTC's now...
It's not really intense competition from Battlefield. It's just the first Battlefield that doesn't suck, while Call of Duty is a woke garbage pile.
Heated argument about Call of Duty's purported monopoly on the lack of competition in the first-person action game category. And then just to finish the article off, following the release of Black Ops 7, Activision announced significant changes in the Call of Duty franchise, including promising to never release back-to-back games in the same sub-brand, so Modern Warfare, Black Ops, in following consecutive years. Activision released Modern Warfare 2 in 2022, Modern Warfare 3 in 2023, Black Ops 6 in 2024, and Black Ops 7 last year. Activision Blizzard expects...
Yeah, there's nothing honestly more interesting in this article. Obviously, most articles are kind of boring, except classic news articles. When that end, they say everything we said in this article, by the way, is a lie, which actually does happen if you did not know. It's funny. In any case, Bobby, as always, keeps winning. Everyone else who challenges him, as always, keeps getting owned. That was Stylos, and now bye.